Eine ganz zentrale Rolle bei der Energiewende im Schwerverkehr spielt die Europäische Union. And I'm very happy to welcome now Bernardo Galantini from T&E, Transport and Environment. Hi Bernardo, how are you?
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Hello, Bernardo, please tell us about the key legal frameworks for trucks at the European level and emerging trends. So please start your presentation.
Thanks, Christian. Yes, I will start it immediately. Okay, I hope you can see it.
Yes, we
And
can see it.
thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm sorry I will present in English. I'm still refining some French skills as I live in Brussels. But yeah, next one will be German. So maybe next year or in 2 years, if we have a follow-up, it will be in German. So starting from a short presentation of TNE, we normally we focus on different modes of transport, including trucks, and we promote regarding trucks the transition to zero emission trucks. We do it together with our members and together with some of our national offices, which are located in some of the EU capitals. So coming to the EU legal framework, there are several laws, several pieces of legislation on heavy-duty vehicles. First and foremost, the CO2 standards for heavy-duty vehicles, setting average CO2 reduction targets for new vehicle sales. And then there are a lot of, someone called them enabling conditions, like the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation, which regulates the rollout of public charging and refueling infrastructure, the Eurovignette directive on the road tolls for trucks, the weights and dimension directive governing the weight and length limits, the ETS2, which is due to start in 2027, so the new carbon pricing system for emission coming from road transport and buildings. And there could be a decarbonizing corporate fleets legislative proposal, so a legislative instrument on the demand for electric trucks, for zero emission trucks. But yeah, the scope is to be defined. We will see in a moment. So starting from the CO2 standards for heavy-duty vehicles, they were adopted in May 2024, and the next review should be in 2027. These pieces of legislation define zero-emission trucks as heavy-duty motor vehicles without internal combustion engines, so battery electric trucks and fuel cell trucks, or with an internal combustion engine whose emissions are lower than 3 grams CO2 per ton kilometer, so hydrogen trucks with an internal combustion engine. And here, I think the most important objective is the CO2 targets relative to 2019, so minus 15% by 2025, 43% by 2030, 64% by 2035, and 90% by 2040. So these are targets applying to truck makers. They are the ones that have to reduce their emission their emission from the vehicles, from the new sales. And of course, to reach the CO2 targets, as said, there are a lot of different regulations. One is the so-called AFIR, adopted in 2023, and next year there should be a review of this highway charging law of the EU. So I won't read all these numbers, but yeah, I think the main point here is that AFIR sets an ambitious timeline and ambitious deployment of charging and also refueling infrastructure. And in particular, on charge infrastructure, what I think it's key to underline is that charging is that AFIR provides targets for dedicated heavy-duty charging infrastructure. So there are specifically targets to boost the development of zero-emission trucks. On the Eurovignette side, here there are also some important policy updates from Brussels. So as you can see already here, the main point of the Eurovignette directive is that it allows member states, of course it's a directive, it needs to be implemented in member states, but it allows member states to fully exempt zero-emission trucks from road tolls. And of course, this is key to strengthen the total cost of ownership of zero-emission trucks, in particular when they are used for long-haul operations, because they have higher kilometers traveled. So this is possible until December 2025, but actually at the end of June, the Commission proposed to extend this full exemption until June 2031. So now there will be a co-legislation process. Let's see, hopefully it will be a quick one. But yeah, I think this is a key policy update which is needed to continue to boost the electrification of freight transport. Of course, there is the emission trading system 2, the so-called ETS2. I won't focus on this one. It's also a politically contentious point right now. But yeah, it covers the CO2 emissions from fuel combustion in mainly buildings and road transport, and also some additional sectors to ETS1. As such, of course, ETS2 aims to drive investments in zero-emission technologies in buildings, for example, heat pumps, in road transport, electric vehicles. So this is key, of course, to decrease, to incentivize the uptake of zero-emission trucks. But yeah, and it's due to start in 2027. It can be postponed to 2028 in case of exceptionally high energy prices. And on the Weights and Dimensions Directive, the Commission proposed this review 2 years ago. Actually, I think it was 11 July 2023, so almost exactly 2 years ago. The revision is still ongoing, so current weight limits can lead to payload losses for some use cases of zero-emission trucks, in particularly long-distance operations. Therefore, the Commission proposed a 4 tons weight allowance for zero-emission trucks in order to support the EU logistics sector in the transition to zero-emission trucks. So as things stand right now, there is a 2 tons weight allowance for zero-emission trucks. The Commission has said propose 4 tons, so plus 2 tons compared to the existing framework, and a 1 ton increase in the driving axle weight of zero-emission trucks. Driving axle is where most battery packs sit, as they are typically mounted along the tractor chassis. So these weight limits would, of course, incentivize the use of zero-emission trucks, but in the Council, especially, so between member states, they have raised some concerns about the impact on road infrastructure, especially the driving axle, the proposed driving axle weight increase. That's why member states need to reach a common position yet. But the good news is that the Danish presidency of the Council started a few days ago, is really committed to reach an agreement, common position by December 2025. So I think that this piece of legislation will be finalized fairly soon. Then coming to the announced legislative proposal, it was announced in the Automotive Action Plan for Q4 2025. So decarbonizing corporate fleets. I won't focus on the scope because it's still too early. It could include car, vans, and trucks, and it will be a legislative tool aiming to increase the demand for zero emission vehicles, of course, focusing on large companies only. But I think it's too early to say which will be the targets, which will be the mechanism that the Commission may propose. Yeah, it's still under discussion within the European Commission itself. And finally, 2 quick points on emerging trends. First, more and more zero-emission trucks are entering the market, and also with a higher range. I think that's a really positive development that we are seeing in the EU market. All truck makers are now in serious production. There are a growing number of partnerships, especially to solve some bottlenecks. For example, I've mentioned Milence on charging infrastructure. Some truck makers are offering flexible contracts like leasing to lower the higher upfront cost of zero-emission trucks. And finally, there are a lot of measures which can help the development and the deployment of zero-emission trucks. One is urban zero-emission zones, which drive the demand for clean deliveries. I think is something that that Amsterdam, for example, is really experiencing. And just to conclude with some some happy news. As you can see, there are a lot of companies now investing in zero-emission trucks. And I think here it's really important to keep the CO2 standards for heavy-duty vehicles because they drive the uptake of zero-emission trucks. They give predictability to EU truck makers, and with mass production, actually prices can be lowered. So it's really important. Regulatory stability is really important to accelerating investments in zero-emission trucks, as well as supporting the industrial shift, the shift of European companies towards zero-emission road transports. And with that said, my presentation is over. So I would like to thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please feel free to write me an email. I will be happy to reply.
Bernardo Galantini, thanks a lot for your very informative presentation. I have one question. Do you have recommendations for Austria? So what measures can or should Austria implement to ensure that the share of electric trucks increases more quickly?
Yes, that's a very good question, actually. I think there are 3 key issues. One, let's see what happens at the political level with the Eurovignette. I think the full exemption of zero-emission trucks from road tolls is really important. So I would then recommend implementing the updated Eurovignette as soon as possible. I personally believe in urban zero-emission zone. I think they can really improve the air quality of cities and drive the development of zero-emission trucks. And finally, be constructive in finalizing the Weights and Dimensions Directive, which is pending since 2 years. So I would definitely love to see it finalized in December 2025.
Bernardo, thanks a lot. There are also some questions to you in the Q&A sector, so please answer them and please stay with us. There are some very interesting presentations coming soon.